Thank you for being here. I'm Marco, and I'm really happy to talk about my open source project, which I've been working on for the last 2 years. It's called Release-plz, and yeah, it allows to release Rust crates from CI with a release PR. That's me. Those are my contacts. Please get in touch if you're interested in this stuff. I'm a Rust and TypeScript software engineer at Prisma, where I build cool databases tools, let's say. And I also started the Rust podcast called RustShip, where I interview other Rust developers to talk about their projects, their experience. This is, for example, the latest episode. And on my GitHub, you can find a workshop that guides you on writing an HTTP server step by step with tests and so on. Check it out if you are getting started with Rust backend development. So let's go into the content. So my journey starts, this journey starts in May 2021, where with my previous company, TrueLayer, we were releasing some of our internal crates open source. So we did some blog posts, we ran Cargo publish, and we had a big party. But we knew that that wasn't the end of the story, because maintaining open source projects, it's hard. And I think I was in a really unique position because I was able to look at the struggles of me and my team working and releasing open source projects. And of course, you need to triage all the issues and review all the pull requests. But like once you merge all these pull requests, at some point you need to release them. Otherwise, your users will scream at you. And I noticed a lot of pain in this process, and so I decided to embark in this journey to make releases easier. And today I want to tell this journey to you. So what's the agenda for today? First, we will see why I created this tool in the first place. So what were the struggles when releasing Rust projects? Then I will showcase Release-plz, and then some lessons learned, and what's next for the project. So let's start with why I released this tool, why I created this tool. So I think that more or less this is what you need to do when you want to release a new version. So first, you need to request access to be able to release, to publish to crates.io, especially if you work in a big organization, right, where there are many people that work on this stuff. When you join, you need to ask for a token to release to crates.io. Then you need to determine the next version based on the commits that you need to release, and you need to decide what is the next version. So maybe you want to increment the patch because you only have small chores, or maybe you want to increment the minor because you have some features, or maybe you have breaking changes, and so you want to update the measure version. This is based on the semantic versioning rules, and this is what Cargo uses, and you can find those rules at that website. So once you have gone through this burden of deciding what's the next version, you need to write it into the Cargo.toml, and this is painful if you have big workspaces. Then you need to update the changelog, and if you're nice, you also put GitHub links that show the exact commit range. Then you need to run Cargo publish to create the Git tag and to create the Git release. Maybe you want to add the changelog to the release message, or if you are a binary, it's a good practice to add binaries to the assets of the release. So when I started thinking about this problem, I wondered, are there any existing tools that solve this? And the most famous one is Cargo Release, which is a great tool. We use that at the company. And I think that among these things that you need to do, in my opinion, it automates this one. So it updates the version automatically once you told him what what do you want to update, so major, minor, or patch. Then it runs cargo publish and git tag. It can run the changelog update if you integrate it with other tools, but is not done by default. There are other existing tools which are great, like Cargo Workspaces or Cargo Smart Release, but they have one issue in common for my use case, which is that you need to run them from the terminal. At least this is the main intended use case. And this is why I don't like releasing from the terminal. First, it's error prone. Like maybe you might forget to run a git pull, or you are in a different branch, or you might even be in the wrong directory. Like there are many mistakes that you can do because it's a manual process, right? Then it's also less secure, in my opinion. It's not like it's less secure with respect to releasing from CI, because like when you have many developers that needs to publish to careless.io, every developer needs a token that they need to save in their laptop. And so what happens if one of those laptops is compromised? Instead, from CI, what you can do is you can create a token for careless.io. You can set it in the repository secrets, and that's it. You forget about it. Of course, yeah, there are other kind of attacks for the CI, so it depends on what are your necessities, but in general, I think it's less secure. And also, when you release from the terminal, I think that the release process is not transparent. Like, it would be great if users can see the logs of your Cargo publish and audit what's happening when you release a new version of your crate. So, yeah, I started wondering, is there a better way to release software, especially from CI? So, luckily, I read Faster Than Lime blog, and in this article, My Ideal Rust Workflow from 2021, he talks about Release-plz, and it's very important to distinguish the ending word, please, spelled correctly. So, this tool is maintained by Google, and it allows to generate release PRs and to deploy to release from the CI. So how does Release-plz work? So on every commit that you do on your repository, this tool creates what is called a release PR. This PR contains all the changes that are not released, and it prepares the next release. So it updates like the Cargo.toml in the Rust case, because it supports multiple languages. It updates the changelog and so on. When you merge this PR, then it creates a tag, and so that from that tag you can trigger your pipeline, basically your release workflow. So how does it determine the next version? It uses conventional commits. So it checks like if you have chars, if you have features, and it determines the next version. Once it determines the next version, it writes it into the Cargo.toml of your project, and it updates the changelog with all the commits that it identified. And yeah, as I was saying, it creates, once you merge the PR, it creates the git tag and the GitHub release. So great, right? We solved many problems. The first one is request access. You don't have to do it, because once you set the careless.io token in your CI, that's it. You just need to merge the PR, and the release process is triggered. It determines the next version thanks to conventional commits. It updates the version and the changelog. And again, once you merge the release PR, it triggers the release pipeline. So if we compare the features of Release-plz with Cargo release, it solves more problems than what, at least more of my problems than what Cargo release does. The only thing we lose is the ability to run like the Cargo publish, because Release-plz, it needs to support different languages, and so it's not really, like, it doesn't know what a Cargo registry is, basically. So, like, I fell in love with this concept of the release PR and releasing from CI, and so I tried Release-plz. And I stumbled across some issues. The first one is that conditional commits are required. There's an entire part of the README which explains why sometimes Release-plz doesn't create a release PR. And the most confusing part, I think, for beginners to Release-plz is that if you don't use like conditional commits, and especially fit, fix, or deps kind, Release-plz won't create a PR basically. And I think that conventional commits are nice, but they shouldn't be imposed. So my ideal is that if conventional commits are not used, at least you should create a release PR with the patch version updated. Also, since Release-plz needs to be compatible with different languages, it relies on some configuration to work. For example, it needs 2 configuration files. The first one, it requires the commit SHA before you introduce Release-plz, and you also need to list all the packages that you want to manage, that you want Release-plz to manage. Also, you need another configuration file where you write the latest version of the crate before introducing Release-plz. I think this is not a nice experience from beginners. And like we already have all this information as in the Rust ecosystem, right? We already know what are all the projects of our workspaces, and we have crates.io and in general cargo registries that tells you what the latest version of a crate, right? So I don't think that in Rust we should use git tags or these kind of configuration files as the source of truth, right? We have crates.io for that. So what I really wanted was a tool that you just do git clone on any Rust project, even the most complex one, like Tokyo, for example, and you do git status after you run this tool, and it updates the changelog and Cargo.toml. So Rust Evangelism Strike Force to the rescue. I wrote it, and yeah, it's called Release-plz. So now, after showing you why I wrote it, I will showcase Release-plz to you. So Release-plz has 3 commands that you can run from the CLI: update, release PR, and release. Let's look at them one by one. Starting from update. So Release-plz update updates the version and the changelog of the packages containing unreleased changes. Let's see this definition word by word. So first, it updates the version by writing it in the Cargo.toml of your package workspace. Then it updates the changelog by using the keep a changelog configuration by default, but you can customize it. And then, yeah, it identifies the packages that are not released yet, and it identifies, of course, the commits that you have to release. So for every package, what it does is that it looks at the commit history and compares your package to like the latest commit against what is published to crates.io. So like it checks, okay, at this commit, are the source file the same? Are the dependencies the same? Maybe no. So let's go to the next one. Again, is this what I published on crates.io? Maybe no. So goes to the third one. Then it checks that they are the same, and so it's Release-plz says, okay, these are the commits for this package that I want to release. Once Release-plz identifies the commits that you want to release, it analyzes the commit message. So again, as Release-plz analyzes the commit message to check for conventional commits, and so if you have only chars, it updates the patch version. If you have features, it updates the minor version. And if you have breaking changes, it updates the measure version. And you can tell that you have breaking changes by writing it in the commit message, for example, with the bang for conventional commits. But what happens if you don't know that you have a breaking change? What happens if you introduce it by mistake? Well, Release-plz checks the API that you expose in your libraries and checks for breaking changes. So for example, in this case, Marco test1 is a library and also Marco test2. And so here Release-plz says that the changes are compatible. But what happens if you have, for example, a public function and from I you rename it to A, say? Well, in this case, Release-plz tells you that you have API breaking changes, and it also prints a report to standard output telling you where this breaking change is. So, for example, here it tells you the function that was missing, the module, and so on, so that you can detect breaking changes before releasing your version. And yeah, this is great for because you don't break your users, basically. So Release-plz doesn't implement this mechanism. It uses Cargo.toml checks to do it. Regarding the changelog, it uses git cliff, so you can customize your changelog as you want. And so shout out to these two projects because they make Release-plz awesome. So we wanted a tool that you can just git clone and then run, and it updates everything. We have it. Yeah, if you do Release-plz update, it does exactly that. So this was the first command. Let's go to the second one, release-pr, which is very simple. It's like running it runs Release-plz update, but instead of printing to standard output, it opens a PR with, again, like the summary of the release, the breaking change report, if any, and of course it changes some files. So this PR contains changes to the cargo.log and the changelog and cargo.toml of your workspace. Release-plz also supports Git, which is an open source GitHub alternative, if you're into that. And yeah, these were the first two commands. So these two commands prepare your next release. Now that for example, if you merge the PR or you commit directly to main, you're ready to release your changes. And so Release-plz releases all the unpublished packages. How does it understand if a package is unpublished? Well, it's really easy. It compares what you have locally with what you have on crates.io. So let's say that I have a workspace with 3 packages, right? It takes the first one, Marco test1. Is the version the same as the one published on crates.io? Well, yes, so I don't have to release this package. Let's take the second one. Is the version the same? No. So Release-plz release will trigger the release pipeline. And yeah, in this case, it's the same. So the only package we need to release is Marco test2. So let's release this package. Release-plz will run cargo publish for you. It will create the git tag, and it will create the GitHub release by attaching the changelog to it. The release can be also created for Git and even GitLab. So maybe you're thinking, hey, you told me that you don't like to release from the terminal, but you're showing me terminal commands, right? Well, of course, we have a GitHub action, and it's really easy to add to your project. Here is how. So first, you just need to copy paste this as one of the jobs of your CI. First, you need to check out your repository by cloning basically the entire history, because Release-plz needs to look at your commit history to determine the next version. Then you select your favorite Rust toolchain, for example, stable, and then here you run the Release-plz action by passing the GitHub token that is used to create the release PR and to create the GitHub release and so on. And then, of course, it needs also the cargo token to publish on crates.io. Great, so let's compare the features of Release-plz with the one of Release-plz. So we have the same features of Release-plz, except that, of course, Release-plz works for every possible, like it supports many languages, while Release-plz is fully optimized for Rust. And so this means that Release-plz will run cargo publish for you by solving all the workspace dependencies and figuring out what's the right order. And then we also added the new features that we didn't know we wanted at the beginning, which is API breaking change detection. So I showcased the Release-plz. Now let's look at some lessons learned. So first of all, I went to some iterations for designing the configuration file of Release-plz. I didn't show you any configuration file because Release-plz works out of the box. However, you can still customize its behavior. For example, if you don't want one changelog per crate, or maybe you just want one changelog for the entire workspace, or you don't want Release-plz to also do the GitHub release because you want to do it by yourself, it's pretty customizable. So this was the first iteration of the configuration file. I know it's terrible, but I will explain why, in my opinion. So probably I was doing too much Kubernetes, so I decided to do the configuration file in YAML and to do this kind of nesting stuff. And what I wanted to to transmit, to tell in this configuration file was the different Release-plz commands. So you might see here there is the update one, and here there is the release one. But yeah, all this nesting basically, it was too much. It was too easy to make mistakes. And so I switched to toml because it's the configuration file which Rust developers are most used to. And I tried to simplify it a bit. So for example, I removed these commands, so like update and release. And so what you see now is that, for example, you have workspace.git release. So I kind of compressed the release git part on the left. And yeah, now this was more concise, but I think it's like I still was doing manual mistakes when writing it. And so I decided to simplify it even more. So from this, we went to this. Now, this is very flat, and there is a lot of repetition. For example, here you can see that the git release words are repeated for git release enable and git release draft. Well, on the left, you can see that there is a git release section, but at some point I didn't care. Like, okay, there's some repetition, but it makes things way easier, way more cleaner. And so I decided to stick with this format. Plus, this format reminds me a lot of how you configure cargo workspaces and packages. So yeah, I like this format because we are already used to it. Second thing I would like to talk about is the testing strategy of Release-plz, because I think it's interesting. So Release-plz has some external dependencies. For example, GitHub and Git to create the release PR, to create the release, and of course a cargo registry such as careless.io. So I like integration tests. How do I run integration tests on Release-plz without like creating pull requests on GitHub or publishing random crates on careless.io? Well, thanks to the power of open source, so Git is open source, and so you can run it alongside your test suite to create PRs, releases, but instead of creating them on their website, you create them on localhost. Plus, Git, since version 1.19, it integrates a cargo registry. So with this configuration file, Git can also host a private cargo registry for you. So basically, just with the Git, I am able to like have all the external dependencies I need. And I don't need to write mocks, which I'm very grateful for it, because like I can sleep better at night knowing that my project can open PRs, can publish to a real cargo registry, and so on. So what I do is I have a Docker compose file where I have I start Git, and I have a database which Git uses. And here are some tests. There are not too many of this type, so if you want to contribute, feel free. So the first test, it tests that Release-plz is able to release a new project in a cargo registry. So I have this package downloader where I try to download a certain crate by using a test registry. And then first I assert that there are no packages, right? This is a closure. So I run Release-plz again and the release command, and I check that now there is one package. So I'm confident that the release published successfully the package. The second test I want to show you is that I test that Release-plz is able to create a new PR on a new project. So here I run Release-plz release PR command. Then I query if there are opened release PRs, and I expect that there is one opened PR, that it has one file, and this file is the changelog. Because when you run Release-plz on a new project, let's say cargo new project, the first thing it does is that it creates a PR with the changelog, with the first iteration of your changelog. Okay, this is how I test Release-plz. Now, how does the GitHub action works under the hood? And pay attention if you want to package a Rust binary as a GitHub action, because this is interesting. So first, I started by having a Docker GitHub action. And yeah, because like, I don't know, I was used to writing Docker containers, so I said, why not? I will package Release-plz and cargo inside a Debian image and inside a Docker container. But I quickly found out that there are issues with this approach. Let's say that the user uses my GitHub action, so Release-plz action. Basically, if you use, like Release-plz was using this Docker container approach, so he wasn't caring about many things. For example, here the user explicitly says that he wants to run on Ubuntu, but since I run in a Docker container, I don't use that Ubuntu. I don't respect that. I run on Debian. So what if, for example, like it happened that there was one project using Release-plz, which was only for a project that was only compiling for macOS. So the Docker file approach doesn't work. Another thing is that if you have a project that only compiles on nightly? I was packaging Release-plz with a very specific version of Cargo, which is the stable, and so that's not, that won't work. So I wanted something that was respecting this kind of stuff. So instead of shipping all of this, I'm just shipping the binary with my GitHub action. And so like when you use the Release-plz GitHub action I showed you before, you just download the binary, and yeah, there is a small script, bash script, and that does everything. So this is how the Release-plz GitHub action is implemented internally. You don't have to write this code. This is in the Release-plz action repository. So how do I download the binary from the Release-plz repository? I use this GitHub action called action install GitHub release. So what this action do is that you specify a repository, and then it goes into this repository, checks the binaries released on the assets of the repository, and given the tag you specified, it downloads the binary for the right architecture. And so yeah, from this point on, you can run your binary as you wish. It also supports cache. So if you already have downloaded the binary, and after you download it, this action saves it into the GitHub Actions cache. The second time you run release-plz, you don't need to download it again. So yeah, really recommend this action if you want to package a a Rust binary inside the GitHub action. Cool. So now these were the lessons learned. Now let's see briefly what's next for release-plz. I would like to implement a set version command. So the way I think about the release PR is that it's a good starting point to your next release, right? For example, what happens if you have only chores, for example, in your projects, and release-plz bumps the patch version, but actually you wanted to bump, for example, you forgot to that you had a breaking change, or you want to bump your version differently. Well, you can go into the GitHub PR, you check out on it, and you change the version manually. Then when you merge it, release-plz will respect whatever you wrote in the PR. I often do this also when I want to edit the changelog, like release-plz prepares the changelog with commit messages, but sometimes you want to expand on it maybe. So what I want is to add a release-plz set version command that you just say this command to a GitHub command, so release-plz set version create and then action. And yeah, release-plz, what it does is that instead of bumping to the version he thinks is the right one, it bumps to the version you want, so that in most of the cases you don't even need to edit this PR. Other features I would like to have: GitLab support, because GitLab is supported for the release command, but not for the release PR1. I would like to have a CLI that you can easily edit the release PR, for example, for the changelog use case that I was telling you. I would like to list contributors in the GitHub release, and yeah, much more. So release-plz, according to GitHub dependency graph, at least the GitHub action is used in 187 projects. These are my, yay! Thank you. So these are my favorite one. For example, you have the octocrab, which is the GitHub client for Rust. You have RabbitMQ, which is using it for the stream Rust client. You have Dactylo, and of course you have release-plz itself, because I'm a believer of dog fooding, and I don't think that release-plz will be as good as it is today if I wasn't using it myself for my crates. So release-plz right now is this small robot that does its things. It does it good, but like, if you want to help me adding even more features to release-plz, please reach out to me. There are many good first issues. I think 2 or 3 people did their first open source contribution with release-plz, so it's very beginner friendly. Yeah, reach out. In case you were sleeping until now, if you want to, like, the big TLDR is that if you want to release Rust projects from your CI, copy-paste this in your GitHub Actions. Of course, look at the docs. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Questions? Yep.
Hey, so first, super cool project, thanks.
Thank you.
Maybe I missed it. I have a question about testing, because I saw you use like Gitty for testing the releases. Do you use anything for simulating crates.io?
Yes, so Gitty from version 1.19, Well, this is going to be slow. It can basically act as a cargo private registry. So here you can configure it like this. You create this repository called underscore cargo index, something like that. And yeah, it takes this repository and it works as a cargo registry.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, so for example, this test checks that I can release to a cargo registry.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks for the talk. So one thing I noticed is the default seems to be maybe to have a single release commit for all your crates in a workspace. How does that work with the intercrate dependency? How do you manage to make that work if you need to release one crate earlier because it depends on another one, or you have a breaking change, so you really need the other one on crates.io first before you can run the publish command?
So do you want to release all your crates like let's say at the same time, one after the other, or maybe like as a subset today, another subset tomorrow?
Probably the first one.
Okay.
I just want to
the first
release
one
them.
is yeah, it's
I don't care how.
It's supported, yes. Release-plz solves your dependency graph, and it first releases the first one, then its dependencies, then its dependencies. So yeah, it's supported, yes.
Thank you. So they will save us a lot of hours at night. That's pretty nice, nice project.
That's the goal.
A very quick question. When it comes to application or binary applications, is there also some sort of checksum support actually, or it's in the roadmap, by the way?
Yeah, I took the decision to not like build the binaries or do anything with assets, because I think I decided it's out of scope for the project. There are awesome projects that already build your binaries and does all these sort of things, which is very opinionated stuff. So for example, I use, if you check the Release-plz CI, I use an action, a GitHub action, which is great. I don't remember now the name. Sorry? Not that. So I use a GitHub action. Yeah, that updates, that creates the binaries and attach them to the assets. But there is another project that is being worked on very much right now, which is Cargo.toml from Axo. And there is a blog post from Orun, which you can check at orun.dev, which shows how you can combine Release-plz with Cargo.toml. So what you do is you disable the GitHub release from Release-plz, and you let Cargo.toml do the GitHub release for you. So that Release-plz just does cargo publish and git tag, and then from the GitHub you attach Cargo.toml.
Question from me, a happy user. Most of the release flow, especially the changelog, seems to assume that you're doing trunk-based development. So that all the releases happen on the same branch, and you never go back basically and backport fixes to a previous version.
Yes.
Which unfortunately does happen from time to time, especially if you maintain libraries. Is this something that you're planning to address? Is that something that has come up in the past?
So I think that it's like a bit of a niche use case, and it's not something you do often. So the way I thought about Release-plz is that, yeah, like Release-plz updates your main branch, and then maybe if you want to release from another branch, you maybe check out locally and you run the release command locally. But if you have ideas on how to do this, let's discuss this.
I do.
Great, yeah, happy to chat about it.
Question?
Okay, I'm glad they finished earlier, so we have some time for questions.
So what kind of measures do you have against accidentally publishing the wrong number or the wrong crate if there are multiple crates in the same repository?
Sorry, what's the question? What kind of Yeah.
What kind of checks do you, or like verifications do you have to make sure that you don't make a mistake and publish the wrong thing or the wrong number?
Okay, is it like for the breaking change detection?
Yeah, for example.
Okay.
I mean,
So-
for example, publishing Tokyo 2.0 would be an irreversible mistake, right? For example.
So, yeah. So what can happen is that Cargo sender checks detects that there is a false positive, so it detects that there is a breaking change, and it Release-plz raises a PR on Tokyo that says, okay, you should update, like Tokyo is going from 1 to 2. Then you, as the maintainer, you review the PR and you check that everything is correct. And of course, if it's not, you can edit the PR manually, or yeah, in the future you can set the version with this command I was talking about before. But yeah, so Release-plz uses either breaking change detection or conventional commits to determine the next version. So the next version is based on like your commit messages. So that if it's wrong, maybe you use the wrong commit messages. But yeah, the gist of it is that you review the GitHub PR before merging it. I hope I answered the question.
Do you think it can be extended to work with other languages, with projects, I don't know, in C or C++ or
Yeah.
different languages, or is it, do you feel it's out of scope?
So if you want to, if you work for on different languages, I actually suggest Release-plz, the one from Google. For example, I use it in my TypeScript, in one of my TypeScript, in a TypeScript project of mine. And yeah, it works good for other languages. But what I wanted to do with Release-plz was to like use all the awesome tooling and conventions we have. So like the Cargo.toml specification and the cargo registries. Probably if you're working with other languages like C or C++, which have way less opinionated tools, way less standards, you're good to go. I would say give Release-plz a try. Yes.
Okay.
Of course, I thought about working on other languages or support other languages, but it's a big maintenance burden. So.
Okay, thanks. Do you think it can be extended to also release to Linux distribution package manager?
So it's better to let release, in my opinion, it's better to let Release-plz create the tag, and then you attach to the tag your pipeline, your release pipeline. You can build a binary and attach it to the GitHub release. You can publish to other Linux distributions. If I add all these use cases, all these features to Release-plz, it will become bloated in no time. People will ask all the possible features existing. There is Cargo.dist, I think, which is doing a good job on this. So I prefer to separate concerns and keep Release-plz focused on, like, do one thing, do it well.
Okay, great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Questions? Hands?
Thank you, Marco, for the talk. I think you mentioned a few minutes ago that when you run Release-plz on GitHub Action, you need to download the entire Git history of the repository. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What about if you have a very large repository with like tens of thousands of commits, in which the download time for loading all of that could take several minutes on an average machine? Do you have any some sort of shortcut in place to avoid having a CI workflow that takes that long?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So the problem is with the like actions checkout action. I think you can, instead of saying 0, which means clone the all history, you can say, for example, I don't know, 200 to clone just the latest 200 commits, which should be enough. But I haven't tested and I'm not sure. So if anybody has a big GitHub history and running Release-plz takes a lot of time, open an issue because it's a problem that I would like to fix.
Thank you. Very good talk, by the way.
Thank you.
Yay.
What was the worst bug you ever encountered while developing Release-plz?
Oh my God. So like there is a, like Luca was talking before, was talking about skeletons in the code base. The part where I compare my like the local project with what's in careless.io is, yeah, it's a skeleton, I would say. I didn't want to depend on Git too, so I use Git from the shell. And yeah, that part is a bit convoluted. And also figuring out, like, it's not that trivial to check if a local package is the same as the one published on careless.io. And I discovered it at my own expense because, like, for example, the Cargo.toml is different from the one you have locally. So there I manually check all the dependencies. I don't do file comparison. So I had a lot of bugs in that area, I think, yes.
Thanks.
But it was fun.
Is there any functionality for pre-releases like alphas or release candidates and stuff like that?
Yeah, no. So wait, if you have, for example, an alpha or if your current version is an alpha or a beta or something, Release-plz will bump that version. So if you are like alpha 2, then the next release will be alpha 3. So Release-plz doesn't know when you want to switch from alpha to beta to May 1. So in that case, you need to check out the GitHub PR and manually change it. This Release-plz set version is a feature that I want to add for this specific use case because it came out from a discussion with the maintainer of octocrab, which runs on like is using alpha, beta, and so on. And when they want to release these, when they want to release the package, there's no way except from manually editing the release PR. So this set version command will make things easier in that case.
Thank you.
Anyone? Okay, I think we're done.
Thanks a lot.
So, thank you, Marco. Marco Ieni.